Brand new Fox polling numbers on the looming fiscal crisis show an overwhelming number of you want major cuts in federal spending if the taxes are going to go up. Look at that number. 89% say President Obama should agree to that deal, but House Speaker John Boehner says the president is not even meeting Republicans halfway. Here he is.
His plan does not fulfill his promise to bring a balanced approach to solving this problem. It's mainly tax hikes. And his plan does not begin to solve our debt crisis. It actually increases spending. The president's calling for $1.4 trillion worth of revenue. That cannot pass the House or the Senate.
Oh, could it? South Dakota Republican Senator John Thune, chairman of the Senate Republican Conference. And Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
Back here to America's Newsroom. Where are we now? Anywhere?
That's the question of the day. What seems to me to be happening here is that the White House is not real serious about any kind of a plan that has spending reductions in it, particularly that address what really drives federal spending, and that's the entitlement programs. So they seem less and less serious about getting a plan that would avert the fiscal cliff, which is why I think you've heard a number of them say publicly they're willing to go over the cliff to get the higher taxes. But I think what's really interesting about your survey, Bill, is Americans are pretty discerning, because by a 53 to 36 margin, they believe that if the president gets higher taxes, he's going to use it for more government spending, not to reduce the deficit, which is why a large majority, I believe, understands spending and spending cuts has to be part of the solution to this problem.
To your point, in our polling, it did show a greater majority of people that we polled said if you give Washington more money, they're going to spend it. They will not pay down the deficit. But back to what Speaker Boehner just said. If you get $1.4 trillion in revenue, he argues that can't pass the House or the Senate right now. Well, Democrats control the Senate. Is that true?
It's possible with a Democrat majority in the Senate they might be able to get something like that through. But I got to tell you, there are a lot of Democrats in the United States Senate who are going to have major heartburn over the level of tax increases that are being talked about and the people that they're going to hit. You're talking about raising taxes on nearly 1 million small businesses who employ 25% of the American workforce, millions of middle-class Americans and their families whose bosses, whose employees would be impacted by these higher taxes. So I think there's going to be a lot of problem with a number that high. There's no way it's going to pass the House of Representatives. It certainly wouldn't get any Republican support in the Senate. I doubt that there would be enough Democrats to pass it either.
So I'm just trying to cut through all of this now. Are we truly deadlocked on both sides, or are we just negotiating up until the 11th hour?
Well, I would like to think that there's still good faith on the part of the President and the administration to get a deal, but I'm becoming increasingly skeptical that that's true. I think right now they've pretty much concluded. Well, I think they've pretty much concluded, Bill, that this has got to be a revenue issue. This has got to be tax increases. To get a deal, to get Republicans to support a deal, you're going to need something that addresses the spending side of the equation, because that's what the issue is, in our opinion, and the facts bear that out. And if you give the president everything that he wants in terms of the higher taxes, it funds the federal government for less than a week. The question is, what do you do for the other 51 weeks of the year? You got a $16 trillion debt, which is $50,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. His plan does nothing, absolutely nothing, to address that. It's all about revenues. That can't solve the problem. We need a balanced plan.
They argue that they've already put these cuts on the table. They've got $1 trillion worth, depending on who's talking, whether it's House Democrats or the White House. But I think the bottom line in all these negotiations is this. If you do not go after spending now, does it happen at any point over the next 4 years?
That it's just a hope and a wish and a prayer. I mean, there are some opportunities down the road. You got the debt limit increase, a continuing resolution vote that comes up in March that might present an opportunity to do something on spending. But the longer we wait, the harder it gets. Their people get more and more locked in that you don't have to do any spending reductions. This is really, I think, the philosophical difference that exists between the way to solve this problem, the president and his people. And by the way, the $1 trillion in spending cuts that you talk about, they're banking cuts that occurred last August.
Understood.
They aren't doing anything meaningful this time around.
Well, Senator, thank you. Republicans argue it's now or never. We'll see if they get their way.
Right.
John Thune in Washington.